Welcome to Lesson 16. This is the first lesson on doing the math in financial planning. Much of financial planning is based upon mathematics, but the mathematics are not particularly complicated. You probably learned the general principles in the 5th grade. It's practically all based on the idea that principal multiplied by interest rate over time equals interest earned. The future rate of an investment is simply the present value plus the earnings. Financial planners will dress this up in many ways to satisfy the lingo of the business. However, it all goes back to this basic equation. Take a moment and review the slide. Make sure you understand it. A present value is what somebody thinks an investment is valued at. It's what a product or service is worth today, or right now. It's totally subjective to the person deciding. A future value is what somebody thinks an investment or a product or service will be worth in the future. The rate of return is a percentage that links the two, generally expressed in a percentage per year. In the marketplace, there are millions of transactions taking place every day. In a transaction, the seller has something that they believe has a present value. The buyer has something that he believes has a similar present value. If they agree, they will trade them and both will be happy. In a cash transaction, the buyer has something of a known present value, cash. He decides if the future value of the thing he is buying is worth the present value that is being asked. In order for both to be happy, they really need to feel that the present value of what they receive is greater than the present value of the thing they gave up. In a financial transaction, the seller exchanges money today for a promise of something from the buyer in the future. If the buyer and the seller do not agree, there is no transaction. When you're depositing money in a savings account, you are selling your money to the bank in exchange for a promise that they'll pay you that money back plus interest at some time in the future. If you're taking a loan, you are buying that money with your promise to pay a string of payments in the future. If you're buying a stock, you are buying the promise or belief that the stock will be worth more in the future. In financial transactions, the buyer is always exchanging a present value for the promise of future returns. Now suppose that someone has offered to pay you $10,000 in a year if you would loan them some money. How much would you loan them today? You would consider how much you could earn during that year. If it would be the rate of return and the risk premium you deserve. Based upon this estimate, you would then make an appropriate offer. Thus, the rate of return and the risk are mixed together to form what is often referred to as the discount rate. You might settle for $9,500, or you might not like the deal, so you might as much and might ask for $9,000 or less. Note that the rate of return and discount rate are the same, just used in a different context. As you look into the future and try to describe what is going to happen with incomes and costs, you will repeatedly see three different patterns of spending income or value. We will describe these as step function data, trending data, or multivariate data. A step function is nearly instantaneous change in the parameter being modeled. In the case of a mortgage, you proceed for a long time with the same payment, and at the end it goes away and your cash flow picture changes. In the case of a promotion, your income and taxes jump up at the same time. As opposed to a step function which is nearly instantaneous, trending data plays out over time and can generally be modeled using the first calculator on the basic equation discussed in the video. For inflation that would go towards expenses for food in 2013, it would be equal to the cost of 2012 times plus 1 plus the inflation rate. The cost of food in 10 years would then be projected as the current cost of food times 1 plus inflation rate quantity raised to the 10th power. Multivariate patterns can usually be reduced to a combination of step function and trending functions. The most common would be someone on a career track of promotions that was also receiving periodic increases with inflation. This is very common in government, large corporations, and professional partnerships. A good example would be lawyers, where new employees see a progression of responsibility or longevity and steady raises with inflation. This is not limited to professions. Consider the person that comes back as a file clerk and might progress to secretary and then to administrative assistant or apprentice, journeyman, or masters in the trade.